Okay, so we'll leave it just one more minute and then we'll make a start. It's just gone 10. Okay, so let's make a start. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to what is the next in the series of our weekly BCFA business webinars, Surviving COVID-19. These webinars are really aimed at thinking about what comes after the lockdown for our businesses. My name's Mark Spragg. I'm the Managing Director of a company called Now Consulting. We're a management consultancy that specialises in helping companies to grow and to improve profitability, ranging from helping people with mergers and acquisitions, sales and channel strategy, all the way through to cash flow and funding and supply chain management. I'm joined today by Jeremy Stein from the BCFA, Ramsay Smith from a company called Media House, which is a specialist communications company specialising in crisis management, and last but not least by Gordon White from Fatbuzz, which is a digital agency that provides a full range of social media services, from social media strategy and management through to content creation and video production. So welcome, guys, and thank you for joining the call today. This webinar is going to very much focus on retaining our customers, or retaining your customers, and how you may think about that, and also maximising opportunities for the future. And it really is all about the future, how to use the current time we're in during the lockdown to plan for the restart of our businesses and preparing for whatever the new normal is. In terms of the sort of process of the discussions, we are open to questions. As you look at the bottom of your screen, you will have a bar with a Q&A function on. If you'd like to raise a question on any of the topics that we raised today, please feel free to do so. We will do our best to answer as many as we can during the course of the webinar. If we don't get to them, we will follow up after the webinar, or if we need to take some additional thoughts from our teams, we'll do so after the webinar. Lastly, if you do want to raise a question, you can do it. You can add your name to it, but if you want to do it anonymously, as you go through the Q&A process, there is an option to click on and make your question anonymous. So before we start the main topic of the webinar today, as we did last time, just going to hand over to Jeremy to give a brief update on the actions that the BCFA are taking on behalf of their members at the moment, both in terms of government lobbying and also working with other trade associations, and also in terms of other actions that the BCFA is providing its members during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Jeremy, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Just before I come on to what we're doing on the sort of lobbying side, so it's important just a quick look at how the sector might come out of lockdown. We know, for instance, the consumer sector, which would represent the BFM, is in complete shutdown at the moment, and as shops are opened up, the recovery for the consumer market is going to be very, very slow. Within the BCFA's area, the care sector is still, most of them are still flat out at the moment, supporting the NHS. So that will carry on. The office sector and the workplace sector, quite a few of the members have been receiving a good level of orders during this lockdown period, and the sooner they're able to go back to work, probably the better for them. But going forward, the real difference for that area is the difference of whether the new builds will carry on for a certain period of time. It's a question of the refurbs, of whether they're going to come through and how that's going to impact going forward. The one sector that is of perhaps greatest concern is the hospitality sector. All the noises coming out of government is that probably won't come out of lockdown as early as the other areas, and it's a question of how far into the future that goes. Obviously, the longer it remains locked down, the more serious for manufacturers. We've been working with our partners in the British Furniture Confederation, which is the BFM, Bed Federation, FIRE, the furniture makers, to try and get under the government to provide extra support in the way of a business race extension, and also really to get them to understand that at the end of the lockdown, it's not going to be a magic wand that people go back to work and suddenly there's a quick or even a slow recovery. It's for certain chunks of our market, it's going to be almost zero recovery for a long time, and that recovery, the support that they're providing, has got to be extended. And whether that's a refinement of the furloughing, whether it's an extension of business rates, or whether it's other forms of support in the ways of grants. If you have manufacturers for the hospitality sector, they're going to need additional support. Now, we've been working with the BFC's all-party parliamentary group of MPs to get this case across, and we've had a campaign of getting members to contact their MPs, and that's actually proved pretty successful. And the message we now think is getting across. But we do really think there's a lack of understanding of how we can come out of this within government. But I think it is changing. We've just this week been notified by BEIS that they want more detailed information on the impact on our manufacturers and how that's likely to happen, how that's likely to continue going forward. Now, we sent out on Monday, with working with, we're now consulting a survey asking for exactly this feedback. Now, BEIS have said they want this information by Friday. So for the BCFA members or any other manufacturers who are listening to this webinar, if you have not yet done that survey, can you please, the next thing after you come off this is go to that survey, which is on our newsletter on Monday. It'll be on the BCFA website this afternoon, and take the 10 minutes to give me the ammunition to give to BEIS. I think there's a really good chance that we are going to see a change in support, but I need people to help us. So that's our priority, is information, giving our MPs some firepower, and keep persuading BEIS that they need to listen to us. So that's our, that's my job for the next 2-3 weeks at least. All right, over to you, Mark. Mark, you're
muted, Mark.
Yep.
Sorry about that, guys. So thanks for that, Jeremy. Obviously, I'd reiterate the survey. I think it's very key to get that sort of information across. It's really helpful to the association to really understand what's going on and what are the key issues, and hopefully the survey will help with that. As we move forward, obviously, if there's specific concerns for your business that aren't in the survey, then please feel free to reach out to Jeremy or myself and raise those through. If there's any specific business topics also that you'd like us to look at in these weekly webinars, again, please either contact the BCFA or myself directly, and we'll look at how we build those into the future program. So now let's turn our attention to the topic in hand, and that of retaining our customers and maximising future opportunities. And it's certainly a bit of a challenge at the moment. For many of us, our customers are urgently closed. And if they're not closed, their key contacts are on furlough or working from home. And that regular contact that we used to have through order management for deliveries, for order queries, etc., is also largely stopped. Like you, Jeremy, is here that there does seem to be some activity at the moment around the office segment with orders. So, it really is a challenge, because as we look at this time, if there was ever a time to need to keep customer contact, it's now, and yet it's really difficult to do. Sales management is probably more important than it's ever been, and yet in many cases what we're seeing is that people are working from home, but actually, because you can't manage to your old targets, sales management is to many degrees stopped. Your teams are remote, they're not working to their normal structure. Salespeople that we used to face-to-face meetings are suddenly having to become experts in Zoom meetings and telesales. So it's all very, very difficult. And it's not a question of, are your teams at home working hard? It's more how you as a business community are starting to think about how you actually set up what the new requirements are for your teams that are working remotely, how they should report that, how they should work with that, and do they need any training or support to actually allow that to happen. And we see that working all the time now. It's easy to lose sight of these things, callbacks and follow-up emails. And I'll just give a quick example, which I was talking to the guys on the call about on Tuesday as we were preparing for this one. We had a requirement for one of our clients, and we connected with our normal provider in this particular area, which is a global brand and sport business. And put the requirement out on Thursday night, Thursday afternoon, and received no reply from the sort of local team. So I reached out to the Vice President of Sales for Ireland and the United Kingdom. And I got a very nice email and voicemail message back to say that they were currently on a 3-day week and not working Friday and Mondays, which, at the moment in this sort of situation is already a long time. But as you probably imagine, there was no callback on Tuesday. There was a callback late last night with an apology, but by that point, frankly, we moved on. We needed a resolution, so we moved on to one of their competitors who is set in and is now working on that particular situation. So it's not that companies lost our business. We've worked with them for a long time, but they have allowed competitors to get in just because they haven't thought through how they're going to actually cope with that 3-day week. And it stretches beyond sales management. It stretches into your general brand communication and how you're thinking of that. So I'd like to turn over to Ramsay and Gordon as you look at the current situation for business. What would you say are the key thing that the companies really should be considering and keeping as the really most important issues for engagement with customers at this time? So I guess, Ramsay, if I start with you, and then Gordon, if you could sort of chip in as you see fit, really.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for attending this second webinar. Mark, I think you've hit on, for me, what is the core of the issue at the moment. Everybody ought to be, if they're not already doing so, planning for, how to crawl out of this horror show at the end of it, or even while it is happening around them. You're right, engagement has never been more vital than it is now. We are all great strategists in our fields and whatever. Everybody likes to strategize here and there. Whereas a strategy is essential, what is even more essential is the implementation of that strategy. Now, I would say at this stage, what I would be looking at any business that we would be advising, we would be saying to them, who is owning the communication? What are they doing about it? How it is being measured? All of those things, so that you avoid things falling off the radar. It does reek of just common sense, but actually putting in place those building blocks are essential to avoid the situation that you're talking about, where you lose business because nobody's returning a call within 4 days. I mean, it's pretty much unthinkable in this day and age. We've been advising a major brand recently who stopped production in a different sector to this, but had to grapple with all the problems of how to get back into it again. And that threw up a host of challenges, bringing a workforce back to work. But I think at this stage, and I'm sure that people attending this webinar and the BCFA would advise people about having business continuity plans, which they will now be. If they haven't had it, they'll have found one and got it implemented quickly. But a structured communications plan is absolutely essential as a starting point, as the platform in which to launch any comeback.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Ramsay says there. One of the things that we're telling our clients is that this is isolation, not hibernation. And if they go off the radar, then there's a very good chance that another brand is going to be communicating with them. I'm a great believer in the fact that people buy people. And right now is the ideal opportunity, ideal time to be actually cementing these personal relationships and actually taking the time to call your customers and actually just chew the fat with them, find out how things are going. And I wouldn't be calling them to try and sell them things at the moment, but taking an interest in their business, finding out how it's impacting them, just really just cementing that relationship, and continuing to engage and put content out there. I think that it's quite well researched that companies that continue to market themselves during downtimes come out of it stronger. Probably the best example ever of that was Nike and Reebok in the 1990 recession, when Nike went into that recession, the smaller brand, but came out of the other end having multiplied their profits by nine times. And Reebok, who they retrenched and didn't market themselves, actually lost market share and lost profit during the same period. So I think it's really important that companies are still engaging, still staying on the radar, and still communicating with their one-to-one contacts and taking an interest in how their business is doing.
If I can just add to what Gordon is saying there, because something that Gordon and I have discussed many times before, it's how you communicate, how you keep in contact with these clients. That can range from a handwritten note saying, "Are you okay?" to a very, very sophisticated digital communication. It's so the whole range is there to be deployed, as long as it's being deployed. And I think that is, I think one of the biggest risks for businesses is that they believe that it's being done, and it's probably more difficult to manage, when people are working remotely. But actually, is it being done? Even in our own business, a communications business, where we're all set up remotely, we have to work a little bit harder to ensure that our teams are all doing exactly what they're meant to be doing. So, it is, as I say, it can seem to be a bit laborious sometimes, but actually devising that plan properly and implementing it, and it can be sophisticated or it can be as rudimentary as you like. But sadly, that is what is going to be required in spades to get out of this.
I guess, guys, as you're looking at this, I guess as you're looking at your structured plans, you're really suggesting that they are structured plans for now. And I think we're all seeing on LinkedIn at the moment, there's some really great things going through, but there's also companies that are effectively regurgitating what they had before as their LinkedIn posts, and you're reading them and you're thinking, well, actually, it's not really relevant to today. So you sort of scrolling past it really fast now. It might have been relevant 3 weeks ago, but now we're in the lockdown. It's really feels like marketing spin. I guess that's not really creating the engagement you want.
You cannot be tone deaf in this scenario and just pretend and to market stuff in isolation to everything else that's going on. That is seen through, as I mentioned last week, that we are seeing some research coming through now, which shows that the brands who are authentic, are trusted, are seen to be doing the right thing in this situation. They are the brands that are going to come out of this, the strongest.
Yeah, I think Ramsay's absolutely right. The word authentic is key here. You need to be authentic and empathetic to the situation, and we've basically been working along the lines of 4 stages, where there was the initial fear and people didn't know what was going to happen. Then there was the containment stage, where you sort of retrench and you know, set up your process for working from home and all the rest of it. And I think pretty much everybody that we're dealing with now is in the latter stages of that stage, and we're now looking to the sort of opportunity for C stage, where we're looking at how is this changing our business now, how is it changing our customers' needs, and what do we need to change to actually give the customer what he needs in the future. And then there's the fourth stage, which is the return to growth stage, which I think nobody is anywhere near that yet. But I think we're going between the sort of latter stages of containment into let's look for the opportunities now. How do we need to change our business model? What services and products do we need to offer to actually help our customers, because their situation has changed as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. As we move from contact into containment into the opportunity, that whole, you know, what is changing with our customers will be key. For, you know, the sort of, you know, the needs of our customers will radically shift. Even maybe the types of customers we support as different industries revolve and strengthen, and other industries drop away at this time. Price point's going to be a really interesting one. I mean, going back to our office furniture members, that we've spent a long time now talking about attract and retain as a key tenant for activity. And it'll be interesting. There's some research coming out at the moment, particularly from BNP, that's sort of suggesting that may be shifting now into more a value and cost play. It's not to say that the employee is not important, but the drivers for real estate may shift, and that's going to change the way we think about business. It's not then being the cheapest supplier, but it's how do you really demonstrate your value. And of course, you know, as we do all of that, that may mean that we're having to shift the way we're thinking about positioning the business, the way we're communicating to our clients about our brands, and not confusing our customers. So, you know, it's a really challenging time, and it's very, very difficult because we're in this world of a pandemic which we've never faced before. But there are, you know, even now, the start of plenty of papers and thoughts out there as to how different industries are coping, and so there are things to build on. And going back to the guy's earlier points, it's a great opportunity to go talk to your customers, ask them what they're facing, where they're going, and how they see their new needs, and to start build that into the picture, so you can start to really consider the sort of opportunity and growth phase. Ramsay, as you said earlier, being relevant and connected is kind of a key part of your whole raison d'etre as both your businesses. So, as we look at this, what advice and thoughts would you see as really useful or crucial as companies are starting to prepare for the future?
Well, a couple of things immediately spring to mind is that every business has been affected by this, you know, mostly for ill, but in some cases, in some sectors, some businesses have done quite well out of it. But there is absolutely no shame in any business admitting that they have been impacted by this pandemic. In fact, it might be seen to be insincere and not very credible to just sort of pretend that, you know, you soldier on and things have been okay, kind of thing. You know, everybody's got their own hopes and fears, you know, in this crisis. This goes back to the whole thing about authenticity and being a trusted voice, and those brands that can demonstrate that both to their customers and to other stakeholders are the ones that I think will come out and feel better themselves, but also be regarded more highly than perhaps, and more relevant than they have been in the past. Just to pick up on a point that Jeremy made earlier on about the BCFA lobbying government or whatever, which is absolutely the right thing to do, because government, however well intentioned, you know, by their own admission, can't get everything right. Nobody's been in this situation before. But any business should be looking to, in my view, and I've advised a number of trade associations in the past, that the strength of lobbying at a local level from members as well is adds a lot of strength to your arguments. And I think that, you're talking about being relevant. If you're an employer who is, or a business, in a particular location, you ought to be communicating with your local MP or MSP or, Welsh Assembly member or whatever, to say, look, we're here, this is what is happening to us. You might raise some of the issues that you've talked about business relief, all of those things, about how you're getting on, how you're dealing with your employers. So all of those things, it may be things that you wouldn't normally do before, but all of those things are worth doing. And another thing that I think is going to be very important for companies as they come out of this is, how do they demonstrate, or do they need to demonstrate to customers and to stakeholders that they're taking reasonable steps about keeping their personnel safe, about keeping their customers safe, about whether customers are visiting them in their businesses. I'm aware of businesses that are putting provisions in place to test their staff. Now, that is mainly going to be antibody testing to separate the people who have had the virus as opposed to people who have not had the virus. And I think that careful consideration needs to be given to that in the future, because it may well be, particularly larger scale employers are going to have a situation where they're going to have to demonstrate in one way or another that they have their own screening processes in place.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a lot of it is not just to do with what you're doing now. It's demonstrating what you're going to do going forward. I think every statement you make at the moment is a brand statement, it's really, influence marketing is taking on a whole new meaning, because some of these statements should be designed to influence your local MPs, as Ramsay said, or your trade bodies or whatever. But it goes back to this basic authenticity and being honest about your own situation, and being open about how it's impacted you, and being empathetic to how it's impacted your clients, and pretty much as Ramsay says, it's how are you going to act in the future. I think one of the things that I was reading the other day, quite interesting, that the prediction for marketing is that a lot of future marketing will be purpose-led. So it will be, and the likes of Dove and Gillette and Nike have always done things around causes, and but I think there'll be a lot more of this, I think, in the future. So not just what you're doing for your own employees, but also corporate social responsibility. What are you doing for your community? And I think that will play a big part in how people judge you in the future as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely spot on, Gordon, because one of the things that the companies ought to be taking time to do at the moment as well is to review their marketing collateral, and we can't prescribe here what that ought to be and what that shouldn't be, but that may change. It may mean going back to the future. It may mean developing new ways of communicating so that you're not requiring more face-to-face meetings, that type of thing. As Jeremy had pointed out about, this is not going to be just a flick of a switch return to normal. So there are going to be many ways to skin the cat in the future, and I think reviewing and assessing what are effective ways of marketing and communicating, as all of us will know on this call, that we're reading stuff every day, and some stuff we will look at and think, yep, that's good, I'm glad I know that now, and other stuff just go straight in the deleted items, and because it's just seen to be unnecessary. So revising and reviewing, you know, and I can think of a number of people that are contacting me on a daily basis, and I think, yeah, that's good, and I'm glad to hear from them. Other people, could care less.
Yeah. And picking up the point that Ramsay made there, I think now is a very good time to review your collateral, but you know, both print collateral and also website content. Even I think there's almost an argument that you need to go back to if you're doing SEO on your website, then look at the keywords and phrases that you're actually optimizing for, because there's a very good chance that these keywords and phrases are going to change in the future. And also, one of the things that we were advising in our business group the other day on was this is a very good time to actually look at developing a tone of voice document, so that when you come out of this, you've got a consistent tone of voice and a consistent message. And these are the kind of things that tend to slide down the to-do list and you never quite get time to do. But that sort of tone of voice exercise is a very worthwhile thing to do at the moment, so that when you do put all this content out, it is consistent, the message. So I think there's a lot of things companies can do at the moment to make use of the time to get further down that to-do list, if you like.
So I guess it's making the time, avoiding the sacred cows and starting to think about the future all the way through, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really great, and it leads us on to you know, the what comes next. I mean, I think we all are pretty much aware now that social distancing is here to stay for a while at least, and that's going to be challenging for many manufacturers, many businesses, and not least for the contract furniture business. You know, we're a very collaborative design business as such. A lot of the design work's done on a collaborative basis. The sales cycle is certainly done on a collaborative basis with product demonstrations, etc. We're all used to trade shows for product launch, and having that sort of trade show product launch product life cycle. Many of those things are probably going to have changed for a considerable time to come, and some may never return. And on top of that, we've sort of got this enforced digital transformation that's going on, which is changing the way we do business full stop, and that will, I think, continue. So, you know, guys, as we look at that, particularly the technology side of things, you know, how are you guys really starting to think about that and advise your clients in terms of how they use technology, both as a communication tool, but as a way to do business as well, as we try and reconnect in a different way with our customers? Gordon, do you want to sort of?
Yeah. I've actually quite enjoyed this enforced digital transformation. I think when it's over, we'll need to sort of rewind a wee bit and go back and check out GDPR issues and all the rest of it. We're all sort of thrown into it, and you know, we had half our staff take computers out of the office and take them home, which I'm sure is not GDPR compliant, but I don't think anybody's going to worry about that right now. I think one of the major things I can see changing here is that, the use of video conferencing and the reduction in the amount of travel to and from meetings. But I think there is probably a greater acceptance of homemade video now. So whereas before I might have thought that every video you put out has to be a BAFTA award-winning video quality, I think nowadays there is a greater acceptance, and I think I actually quite like the fact that you really get to know people at the moment, and you know that you'll be sitting having a fairly intense meeting with somebody, and their wife walks in with a cup of tea and puts it down, or the dog jumps up, or whatever. So going back to the people by people thing, I think there's a great opportunity there to use the technologies to get to know people a bit better. And I certainly don't think there's any need to go out and invest majorly in, you know, if things are going to go away from trade shows to more done on sort of video tours and stuff like that. I think there's any great need to go and invest in the top quality equipment, because it's very much this. I'm not saying that the quality should be poor, but there is a general acceptance of this type of video now as a means of communicating.
Yeah, if I can just add to what Gordon is saying there, I think there's one simple sort of maxim, and that is, it's all about content. How you do it, and Gordon's, firm is absolutely expert in the latest technology, but it's what it is. And as said earlier, whether that is a handwritten note to somebody wishing him and his wife well because they're maybe having a bit of a hard time at the moment, can be equally as effective as, the most up-to-date Zoom webinar or whatever. So, it is about what those messages are, what that content is. I have no doubt that things will change in terms of the capital investment required on things like trade shows and whatever. Those are the type of things that could fall out of favor in the future, although people may feel the need to get back together again. Who knows? But what it does say that you do have to have your collateral in good order, whatever that collateral is. It could be, a fairly sort of sparky homespun type of video. It could be, you could even see the return of the brochure in many ways, whether that is electronic or whether it is in print or whatever, who knows. But it's that suite of materials that's going to be absolutely essential in how we go about things. I think there is an interesting opportunity for businesses to look at things differently and say, well, do we really need to go to that trade show? Can we do our own bespoke event in the future where it's smaller scale, it's more targeted, so we don't have that fairly intensive sort of commitment to attending certain events simply because we always have done it that way. So those are issues that management teams ought to be considering right now, because there are ways in which they can they can maybe think about doing something different. They don't have to make any hard and fast commitments right now, but they could save themselves quite a lot of money by thinking about doing something differently. And again, going back to what Gordon was saying is, being purpose driven, CSR credentials at the forefront rather than halfway down the list. All of those kind of things that are going to add to the value of a brand in the future.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the big challenge for your industry is it's very much at the sales level. It's very much a touchy-feely thing, and it's how you do that in future, because people are used to getting together and actually trying, touching and feeling and trying to follow each other and so on. So there is a challenge there, but I do agree with Ramsay that if the days of trade shows are not over, they're a long way away at the moment, and you need to find other ways to actually sort of replace that method of selling. But I do think if traditionally you went to a trade show and launched 10 new products, you've got to look on the positive side and say, well, we're going to launch them, we're going to drip feed them out one at a time, and it gives us 10 chances to engage with the customer rather than one chance at a trade show. So I think you've got to look at the upside of it, as well as the fact that you're going to have to change. If you normally did it through trade shows, you're maybe not going to have that option for a while to come now.
Yeah, I guess as we look at the business as well, if I think this content thing's really key. As we think about how we sell, we might not be able to be in the same place with maybe having, if we're selling through dealers, the dealer and the brand salesperson at meetings, etc., etc. So that collateral, that ability to get those messages across is really key. So taking the time to make sure that's relevant and available is a really big thing now. And I do sort of think that, you know, this whole point of launching a different way to get more traction or more points of contact is definitely just goes back to our earlier comment around engaging with the customer. So great. So we're getting towards the end of our session. So I think, you know, hopefully everybody's enjoyed this session. I took a few things out of that, which I'm sure everybody has taken different things, but, you know, I think coming across very clearly, the first thing for me was this isolation, not hibernation. That was a great quote. I think it's very important that, you know, we do see that our teams are out there in isolation, but still very much in business, those that aren't on furlough. I think that point about doing things different and having an open mind to the future is also really key right now. You know, the one thing I think we can all guarantee is it's not going to be the same. We just don't know what the future is going to be. So being open to the differences is key. And then, you know, going back, it's really about engagement. I think, you know, the thrust from the guys was really, you know, it's about that tone of voice and that authentic personal contact. You know, for all the businesses on the call, really looking at how you do create that authentic personal contact, make sure everything you're putting out is relevant. If it was something for yesterday, really take a hard view of it. Is it still relevant in today's climate and business that we're in? And last but not least, I think, you know, the clear message from Jeremy and the guys throughout is stay connected with your customers, stay connected with your politicians, stay connected with your trade associations, because that's actually how we will all communicate our way out of the other side of the situation we're in. So I'll just check with no other questions. There was one actually came up just before the call started, but I think what we'll do actually is, that was really more with regards to employees and the impact post the lockdown period. So I will look to put that into a future session. It was actually relevant to this because it was regarding the communication to customers if there had to be redundancies after a furlough period. So we will have a look at where we can build that into a future webinar. So on that, I'll start to wrap up. So we hope you found this BCFA business webinar enjoyable and informative. If you've any suggestions in terms of how we can improve it or topics for the future, then please reach out to Jeremy and the team or directly with myself. Of course, I'd like to thank the panelists, Ramsay, Gordon and Jeremy. Thanks very much for the time this morning and the insight and thoughts for the BCFA members. They were very interesting. Thank you very much. Our next webinar will be same time, same place next week. And we're going to really be looking at the sales channels and the changes that are happening in sales channels and distribution. So kind of the go-to-market end, the retailers, the dealers, the distributors, the online e-store platforms. Some of them may not all survive. Some of them will be changing their business models, and we're going to be really starting to look at what actions you should be or you could be taking to prepare again for the restart and for the business in the new norms. So once again, thank you very much, everybody, for joining, and I wish you all a very good weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again, hopefully next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.